So Nanny Rabina is joining us now with Melanie Ang from BT Toronto to talk a little bit more about this issue. We know that there are so many complexities and so many feelings and emotions happening with parents who are working either in the home or outside of the home, but you do have to make a decision when it comes to your childcare, all right? So we want to look at daycare versus hiring a nanny. The choice you make, there's no judgment here. It's about what works for your family and what works for your wallet.
And I just want to point out, you need to start that search early.
Really early.
Really early, because it's very hard to get the right nanny, and it's also very hard to get the right spot in the daycare of your choice.
That's right. So Melanie started when she was a couple months pregnant.
That's right.
I remember starting when I was a couple months pregnant. I also got into none of them. And so it was sort of like this patchwork, like this Russian roulette, rolling the dice, like trying to figure out how to make it work. Let's talk about what might be good about daycare, Rabina.
So daycares, what you will find is when your children do go to daycare, there are absolutely things that will take place in daycare where your children will learn that they just won't get with a nanny. And one of them, and I hear this all the time, is their diet. It's so funny. The amount of parents that will tell me that their children eat better at daycare.
Oh, yeah.
They will eat broccoli, they'll eat green beans, then they'll come home and say, I don't like them, you know, and they won't eat it at my home.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is because they see other children. So, you know, it's a whole mimic thing. They will mimic what other children do, and hopefully that's all good stuff.
Right.
So that's definitely one of the pros. The other things with daycare is they are sociably getting interactive with other children on a larger scale.
Yeah.
Now, leading up to that, you might have some issues. If you've been at home with your child and they're only used to having one or two, now they're going into an environment where there are a lot of children, which is absolutely wonderful for their social skills.
Right. But you have to deal with
some of that, you know,
the disconnecting, which is that can be
absolutely
brutal. So one thing to think about with daycares, they're all regulated by the Ministry of Education. So regardless of which province you're in, they're all going to have that regulatory body. Why is that a good thing?
That's a good thing because you want to know that obviously that particular establishment that you're going to has actually been looked over, regulated, you know it's safe. So they go in and they check all of those, you know, those little areas. You don't want to go to a daycare where, you know, perhaps it's on, sorry to say it, but I have seen this, it's on a main street and there's not a whole lot going on outside that really makes them safe. I would never want, and I've seen this, a child in a daycare where their idea of play is zooming traffic go by where they're breathing in fumes, for goodness sake. But they do pop up, so you want to do your research and make sure that whatever daycare you do go for passes the safety codes, if nothing else.
Got it. Okay. The workers at a daycare are usually registered workers. They usually have credentials, so this sort of falls in line with the Ministry of Education being the regulatory body, right?
Absolutely. You want to make sure of that because some daycares will take perhaps students or someone that has experience, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're hell-bent on wanting to know that they have that ECE education, then you want to ask those questions up front first. There is a difference because I think once you've been through the education system, the way you come across to a child and teach and you put things out to a child is definitely different if you've been through schooling for it.
Just shifting gears for a second, for someone like Mel who has to leave her house at 4 in the morning, one of the issues with daycare are the hours. So just moving into the cons then, looking at some of the disadvantages of daycare, the hours of operation, very specific.
Very specific, and I've had this even with some of my clients. I've just been working with a client now, and she said, so in 2 months I go back to work. What do I do when I wake the baby up at 4:30? I'm like, what? What do you do? You don't. I'm a cop.
You don't,
I'm a cop, and I went, oh my gosh, you know, and just like you, Mel, it's so hard, you know, because the daycares are not open at that time.
There's such a market for people that work, you know, overnight shift work, that sort of thing, that there should be something.
You know what? We should open
Let's start it.
Let's start it.
Yes. Mel, that would be a significant side hustle for you.
Right?
You start that because there are so many more people working shifts than ever before.
Not
so
just television.
You can't just look at I'm not even talking about media.
Television, doctors, nurses, they all get up in the middle of the night.
Absolutely.
And it is an ongoing problem. So sometimes your choice is actually taken away from you. Because if you can't find a daycare, you have no choice. You've got to hire a nanny.
That's right. Yeah, you do.
So,
The fees. So let's talk about the fees for daycare. I remember paying basically a second mortgage when we finally got them in.
You live down in the city.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a lot of money.
It varies hugely. Some will actually change the price when you go from an infant to a toddler.
Yeah.
It's a different price. And it will also vary in the area. So the more north you go, the cheaper it is. The properties are cheaper. Therefore, the places that they rent will be cheaper. Your fees will be cheaper. Then you come down to the city of Toronto, you're paying a mortgage. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it does get more expensive if you come down.
Yeah.
I've always said that when you look at how much you're costing for daycare, you're paying for one child daycare, 2 children, get a nanny.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because of the cost.
Yeah,
it becomes
I know.
about
When
cost.
you get to child
Yeah.
number 2, let's flip over to the cost then for a nanny for a second. They're pretty expensive as well.
So the way we've costed it out, a nanny, again, I live in Toronto,
Yeah.
and it is expensive. Mortgage number 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's expensive. Nanny is, if you do it the proper ways, let's be honest, a lot of
Yes.
people do under the table and they don't do the proper route. We did it as we registered as a business. And so you pay CPP, EI contributions, WSIB. That is on top of a nanny salary. So you could be looking at potentially double of what you're going to pay for daycare.
That's right. And,
Yeah.
and then you've got an employee who gets a paid vacation
Yep.
and all of those things.
And a
So
bonus at Christmas. There's all those
Hey,
little
I don't get a
things that
bonus at
go on.
Christmas.
The nannies do.
They should. They
Again,
should. They're
they-
actually doing the most important work, right?
Yeah.
They're raising your children. They're helping to watch your children. So it should be paid for what it's worth. Listen, everyone's got to go through their own research and start doing it and do it early. But thank you so much for sharing your story, Mel.
Thanks for having
Everyone
me.
can
Yeah.
relate to it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much,
Thank
Ravina,
you.
for the information.